It took a moment for my eyes to adjust to the bright sun after the darkness of the warehouse. I surveyed the landscape, trying to figure out where the hell I was. I began to run down the road, changed my mind and doubled back. Where the hell should I go? The police? Back to my apartment? Find some place to hide and wait out the 5 hours? I was at a loss for what to do. I heard a soft whirring noise from above and discovered that they were tracking my movements with a few airborne drones. A quadcopter drone hovered about 20 feet above me, shadowing my movement. The odds were against me. They had GPS and drones tracking my every movement. Who knows if they would even honour the 1 hour head start they promised me. I quickly realised that this wasn't meant to be a fair fight. Similar to how a big game hunter in Africa uses expensive weapons, guides and equipment to ensure that they have the distinct advantage over their prey. I began to devise a plan. Their advantage was through their superior technology. They had drones, GPS, and a remotely controlled explosive attached to my chest. I had to equal the playing field. But how could I do that? Going to the place was out of the question. They would immediately detonate the explosive sewn onto my mesh vest they strapped onto me. I began to jog down a side road, still trying to figure out how I would stay alive for the next 5 hours. Then it came to me. I could even the playing field by going underground. The drones and GPS would be useless, and hopefully the radio-controlled explosive wouldn't work either. I quickened my pace and headed towards tall skyscrapers on the horizon. I had to find an entrance to the subway system. I began to pass by more and more people as I left the industrial part of the city and moved into the residential and commercial areas. I fought the urge to run up to a police officer on patrol and beg for help. The drone still hovered above me, although it was much higher now to avoid attention from pedestrians. I finally reached the entrance to the subway and looked down at my watch. Almost 30 minutes had passed. The guy hunting me, Dimitri, had almost certainly left by now. These were not the type of people that played by the rules. Trusting them was a sure way to get killed. I began to descend the stairs to the subway and saw that the sign read that I was in Staten Island. I followed the signs, hopped over the turnstile since I did not have any money on me, and waited on the platform for a Manhattan-bound train. 5 minutes of waiting and no train. I sensed someone watching me and looked around. At that moment, I saw Dimitri step through the entrance and onto the same platform. His cold blue eyes locked onto mine, and his lips curved into a slight smile. He began to walk towards me, his ice-cold eyes never leaving mine. I didn't stop to think. Fight or flight, I chose to fly. Dimitri was about 20 yards away from me when I jumped off the platform onto the tracks. I heard gasps and cries from the crowd on the platform, and a loud curse from Dimitri. I sprinted down the tracks and into the dark tunnel. I glanced over my shoulder and saw an enraged Dimitri standing on the edge of the platform. He looked as if he were about to jump down onto the tracks and give chase. But at that moment, the Manhattan-bound train pulled into the station. I had about 5 minutes until that train caught up with me. I was in decent shape, but I knew there was no way that I could outrun a train going full speed. My only hope was that someone let the train conductor know that I had jumped onto the tracks, therefore delaying the train. 10 minutes passed and no train. Things were finally beginning to turn my way. I thought to myself that maybe I could wait out the game underground in this tunnel. After the 5 hours were up, I could emerge from the tunnel and leave this ordeal and city behind forever. I walked for a while longer and eventually found myself at a fork in the tunnel. The tracks continued on to the right, while an empty, smaller tunnel veered off to the left. I debated which way to go. Going right and following the tracks was sure to get me to Manhattan. However, I had no idea how much longer they would delay the train for, and my hunter, Dmitri, was sure to be waiting for me at the next station. If I chose to go left, then I had a greater chance of evading Dmitri for a while longer, but I had no idea where the tunnel led. At that moment, I heard a shout from behind me and saw the bright glimmer of a flashlight bobbing up and down. A gruff voice called out, "Hey kid, what the hell do you think you're doing down here?" At first, I thought Dmitri had found me, but I soon realised that it was the train conductor. I relaxed and told him that he wouldn't understand. Yeah, I'm sure I wouldn't understand. Depression and suicide are a hell of a thing. But buddy, you've got to think about the danger you're putting other people in by jumping in front of trains. Hell, look at me. I'm 50 years old. I'm following some kid into a dark tunnel. If I trip and touch the third rail, then I'm toast. The guy thought I was trying to kill myself. It couldn't have been farther from the truth, but I decided to play along. I responded, "Yeah, sorry mister. Didn't think of it that way." "Come on, follow me back. The police are waiting back on the platform. Let's get you some help," said the conductor. I stepped towards the conductor and he began to smile, but stopped. He moaned, tried to speak, but when he opened his mouth, only blood emerged. He fell to his knees, and in the dim light, I could see Dmitri standing behind him with a bloody knife in his hand. Dmitri laughed softly and took a step towards me. He murmured, "You've been well worth the price. Haven't had a hunt this fun in years." I began to slowly walk backwards, not daring to take my eyes off him for a moment. He said, "You almost made it to the 5-hour mark. That would have been bad for both of us. It would have been a failed hunt for me, and you still would have died." I responded, still walking backwards, "Why am I not surprised? You cowards have given yourselves every advantage in this so-called hunt." Dmitri paused for a moment, and then cursed at me in Russian. "You have quite the mouth for someone that is about to die." I laughed at him, trying to act more confident than I felt, and said, "Drop that knife and fight me like a man. What? Are you scared that a poor, simple guy like me could beat you?" His eyes darkened and jaw clenched as he silently raged. This wasn't going to be as he had planned. I guess he had been hoping that I would beg and plead for my life. I wasn't going out like that. I still had one more trick up my sleeve. It was a gamble, but it was my only chance. Dmitri cursed at me again and took another step forward, knife still in hand. I turned and ran. I could hear him laugh and give chase. I sprinted for about 50 yards and then hopped over the third rail and spun to face him. He slowed to a walk and closed the distance. I cursed, begged, pleaded, anything to keep him distracted. We finally stood face to face, with only the third rail separating us. He started to congratulate me on being such a worthy opponent, but I cut him off mid-sentence and spit in his face. He roared and took a step forward, but his foot connected with the third rail, and his body convulsed as thousands of volts of electricity surged up from the third rail. The smell of burnt flesh sickened me, but I felt relieved that my gamble had paid off. I had figured that Dmitri, a man born into extreme wealth, had never once been on a subway system. Public transportation was something alien to a person accustomed to being chauffeured in luxury cars, jets, and helicopters. It was not home free yet. I still had the explosive sewn onto the vest to deal with. I only had an hour left until the explosive would detonate. I clenched my teeth and forced myself to search the body of Dmitri. I first pulled the knife from his still smoking hands, but then remembered what had happened to Subject B when he had tried to cut the vest. I dropped the knife and began to search the charred remains of Dimitri. My stomach lurched as my hands came into contact with his burnt flesh. I closed my eyes and searched his pockets. His hand closed around what seemed to be a small key. I pulled the key out of his pocket, took my shirt off, and searched for a place to insert the key on the vest. I stretched my arms behind my back and found the zipper. I followed the zipper with fingers until I found a small lock holding the zipper in place. The key did not go into the lock at first, probably because the electricity from the third rail had warped it, but I forced it in and twisted. I pulled the lock out and removed the vest. I could hear voices coming from down the tunnel, probably the police coming to check up on the conductor. For a moment, I thought about waiting for the police to find me, then explaining this whole ordeal. But I knew better. The ultra-rich have a way of getting away with murder. I don't doubt that any investigation into this most dangerous game would end up with me dead. I turned, began to trot down the tunnel towards the Manhattan station. I would grab my things and get out of the city as quickly as possible. I've learnt my lesson. There's no place in New York for a simple guy like me. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. You can also leave a comment below. All feedback, good or otherwise, is always appreciated. If you have any creepy stories of your own, or have any topics that you would like me to cover, feel free to send them in via any of my social media. You can find all links to my social media in the description below. Until next time guys, make sure you lock your doors, stay safe, and I'll see you next video.